All right, hello and welcome to today's podcast, the Carl Jackson Show podcast, your daily dose of objective truth in a world of confusion and lies. Guys, we have a special guest with us today, and we'll get to her in just a second. I'm looking forward to talking about this specific topic. My producer gave me this topic yesterday, and normally sometimes I'm like, you can schedule certain things down the road or whatever, and I'm like, man, this is a very interesting topic. It's one that isn't talked about enough, in my opinion, and so I was very excited to get this particular guest on. You guys see the build up. You see the kind of tease that I'm doing here because I do think it's a very special guest, but a very special topic. How is illegal immigration impacting our K through 12 education system and our students? And so now I want to introduce you to none other than Erika Donalds. Now, Erika, before we started, I guess we need to make something clear. Do I refer to you as Representative Byron Donalds' wife, or should I refer to Byron Donalds in the future as the husband of Erika Donalds? How does this thing roll?
Well, I always say that my favorite title is Byron Donalds' wife. You know, we've been married for over 20 years. We met in college, so we've grown up together and done a lot together in our professional careers and in politics. So I would say that you can go with Byron Donalds' wife, although some might disagree with me here in Florida, where we've both been active for a really long time.
You know, I frankly, I didn't realize how active you are. So I was reading up a little bit on you yesterday, and obviously you have a very impressive background. So the issue that we brought you on to talk about is how illegal immigration is impacting K through 12 education. Now, you run a school choice program. Correct me if I'm wrong, Erika.
That's right.
OptimaEd. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, OptimaEd is an education experience company. As you might know, I served on the school board here in our local community for 4 years. After a long career in investment management, I found how broken the system is, how poor of quality we are offering our students, the curriculum, and how little school choice people have when the school that they're assigned to is not working for them. So I decided to use my knowledge and experience to start a company that would not just start up charter schools and schools of choice around my state and now around the country, but we also launched the world's first VR school in the classical education tradition, and we offer Optima Academy online, tuition-free in many states, but also private pay as needed across the country, and now we actually have students around the world as well.
Man, that is so freaking smart, and obviously going to make a lot of people smarter. I can tell you this, Erika. I have, just to be frank, I have some nieces and nephews that live straight up in the hood, but they were able to take advantage of school choice opportunities in large part thanks to Governor Ron DeSantis here, and they are all excelling. One graduated high school. He's now a fireman. We have two nieces, my wife and I, that are one is going to school to be a veterinarian. The other is going to be a social worker. Lord willing, she doesn't become a social justice worker. But nonetheless, and her dad too. Her dad is a pretty stark conservative in the hood, a black conservative. So it's pretty amazing. But the cool thing is all of them have benefited from school choice. Getting that option, going to a charter school. One of them was doing okay, but not so great, not living up to her potential in public school. She goes to this charter school. They challenge her. I mean, the girl ended up becoming a 4.0 student. It's insane, but she was challenged.
That's why we do what we do. I was one of those parents. I thought I had selected a school that would work for all three of our boys, and I found out quickly that one of them, it just didn't fit. And I also discovered I didn't have school choice. I didn't have charter schools in our community. I couldn't afford private school at the time. And so that's what really embarked me on a journey over 12 years now of trying to expand school choice for families like yours, families like mine, children who deserve an alternative. And what I really discovered is what the education system needs is to break the monopoly, to introduce free market competition into the education arena. And the only way to do that is through universal school choice, which thankfully we have begun here in Florida. We've seen in other states like Arizona. And I think that is only going to grow as parents like your brother, your family, and mine begin to demand more options. It's going to increase accessibility and quality for everyone, including those who are most disadvantaged.
Now, let me ask you this, because I think this is a very important question for conservatives to tackle as well. There are always going to be some students and some parents and families that perhaps for whatever reason, maybe they're not as concerned about their kids' education, just speaking truthfully, or maybe they're just too busy. There's always going to be public schools. Do you have an answer as to how or what we need to do in public schools as well to make sure that, listen, the vast majority of people are going to go through those government schools, if you will? How do we make sure that the quality of education is good?
Yeah.
Because it's detrimental for the United States of America.
Absolutely. I do believe that competition will help to bring public schools to a higher level of performance. However, I also believe in accountability through transparency. We're going to talk about some things today, the NAEP scores, the way that students are graduating without proficiency in math or reading, the majority of students in our country. But people don't really know that unless you're looking for statistics, and unless you're like you and I who are really interested in these topics. I think we need to be pushing that information out to parents so they have it and they understand how their student is truly performing at that school. And then they also need the competition and the ability to vote with their feet to do something about it when the schools are underperforming. I think, to your point, parents who may not care or seem not to care about the choice of school, they feel like they can't do anything about it. As I have been around the country, including with the Leadership Institute, talking to parents, that's what we hear. They've never gotten involved in this before because they've never had an option outside of their zone school, and also didn't feel like they could do anything about it. So I think parents will care more when they have those options available to them and when they actually have truthful information about how the school and their student is performing.
And again, I'm speaking to Erika Donalds. Make sure you check her out. You can find her on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Erika Donalds. She spells her name with a K, so at Erika Donalds. Also, you can check out their program at OptimaEd or at Optima VR. And yes, she is the wife of Representative Byron Donalds, hopefully the future governor of Florida. I like both he and Ashley Moody, I'm not going to lie, but obviously Byron Donalds, he has a presence about him that few politicians have. I believe DeSantis has it, obviously Trump has it. Byron Donalds is one of those guys. So I don't know what you would like to see him do in the future, Mrs. Donalds here, but you can tell him that there's a guy in Orlando, Florida, that wants to see him in the governor's mansion one day.
I appreciate that. I always say whatever God has for him, I'm here for it and here to support him. And he's never steered us wrong, so we just keep following his path. If that leads to the governor's mansion or beyond, we're happy with that. And if it leads him right back home to just live a normal life, I'm totally fine with that too.
All right. Well, I already prayed about it, so he's good to go. He's good to... All right. So anyway, and listen, I don't always agree with the representative but for the most part I do. But I believe that he is a man of conviction. It's pretty clear whenever I see him speak. And so I was privileged to meet him. This was a long time ago. He was literally running for state house at the time, and I met him here in Orlando and had a fascinating conversation with him at the time. It's been quite some time, but anyway, I'm glad to see his success in the political arena. Okay, so I want to talk about obviously getting on to the issue of illegal immigration. Before I get there, though, was COVID kind of a blessing in disguise when it comes to education? I mean, it exposed a lot of things. Sadly, it destroyed our educational system across the country, but it also opened the eyes for a lot of parents who are like, holy crap, is this what my kids are learning? Not just in K-12 education, but in college?
Well, I would say that's the silver lining. Obviously, it's been so detrimental to so many students. I actually just had a conversation with a teacher last night, a local teacher who was teaching fourth grade. And she said these students missed such critical years of learning, or they were online and they just didn't get what they needed as a foundation, and they'll never be the same. They're never going to catch up from the years that they missed, because you don't get another chance at second grade or third grade, especially in math and reading, when those skills are building upon one another. So that was hugely detrimental. But to your point, when students were at home, parents got a transparent look, going back to our earlier conversation, about what they were learning, but more importantly, what they were not learning. The level of quality was so low. Parents really saw that. They saw some of the indoctrination and the political and cultural teaching that was happening to their children. And it did wake a lot of parents up to say, man, I really need to be paying attention to this. They were angry when the school districts like mine, even here in Florida, masked our children for a full year, even when the science did not line up with that. And we went in droves to the school board meetings asking them to make masks optional. And so parents found out that school boards don't actually necessarily care what parents think or what they want out of the school district. The teachers unions do not actually care more about kids than they do adults. The adults are on vacation and the kids are not learning. And that's what we all saw during the pandemic. Now, as the data is returning about how much was lost, I use this example from LA because all of the studies say that these kids need about 4 months of additional learning to catch up. So they can't even catch up in a year if they went year round. The LA superintendent tried to get 10 additional days of learning for students who need 4 months. And the union refused to allow them to add those days, even with additional pay. So the unions really showed us what they're all about. I certainly already knew that as a former school board member, but it showed the entire country that they are out for adults and not children, and they're not to be trusted with our kids.
And this is why competition is so important, because I think, you know, as conservatives, we always say that that's the buzzword, competition. But with competition comes accountability, and a lot of these union representatives or these people that are associated with the teachers unions, like, there is zero accountability. It is absolutely insane. And I'm originally from Los Angeles, and I got to tell you, I used to be just straight up, I mean, before God radically changed my life, I was living just a crazy lifestyle, honestly. But just looking back to the educational system that I thought was fairly decent, hindsight 2020, I'm like, dang, I was being brainwashed by the left. It's insane. And I'm talking about late 80s and early to mid 90s. I can't imagine what the schools, especially in California, look like today, when I can look back, hindsight 2020, and just say, man, that was absolutely insane. Now, I'm bringing this issue to the issue of illegal immigration and how it is impacting K-12 education. I am so glad, for one, you're out there talking about this, because I don't hear anybody talking about this. But I got to say this, Erika, I think this is so unfair to both American students and even students that are illegals that are coming across the border. They come into the classroom. They're packed inside of a classroom. They don't get the attention they deserve. You have the children that are illegals trying to learn a second language. No doubt, some will excel, most will not. And then you have the American citizens, the students whose parents pay the tax bill, and their students are being drowned out, and they're being dumbed down. Too, if we're being honest here, Erika, because now you have teachers catering to illegals that aren't even at the same level as American students.
Well, speaking of being unfair, it's unfair to the teachers as well to expect what is already a difficult job, especially if you are teaching students who are far behind, either due to the pandemic or just due to the fact that our schools have been failing us for decades, as you just mentioned. So you're expecting that illegal immigrants, non-English speaking students, they're coming into these classrooms. Some of them are increasing in our major cities by double-digit percentages. So doubling the number of students in your classroom who are non-English speaking, coming in with huge education gaps, taking up attention from the teacher, resources from our counselors, our social workers, our specialists, IEPs and ESE specialists, all of those resources that American children deserve and need are being diverted or split. And we're talking about 1 million children, perhaps, that have come in since the Biden administration started. That is not small at all. It's costly, and that money is not going into the schools to take care of these children. The only people who really lose in this situation are the American children who deserve the very best education possible.
Absolutely. And before I forget, guys, I do want to remind you to please go to mypillow.com. They are the reason why this podcast and this show is up and running. So please support my sponsor, mypillow.com. Mike Lindell has a fabulous company there. Go to mypillow.com, click on the radio podcast square, enter my name, Carl, at the top of the page, CARL. Or if you prefer, give them a call at 800-858-0263. That is 800-858-0263. You get a 10-year warranty, a 60-day money back guarantee. And listen, let's face it, all of us are struggling when it comes to the Biden inflation and Bidenomics. Christmas is coming up right now. MyPillow.com is offering 50% off of Giza Dream Sheets. Plus, there's an array of products that are available. Some are over 60% off. All you have to do is go to mypillow.com, click on that radio podcast square, enter my name, Carl, CARL, or give them a call, 800-858-0263. Plus, you get the satisfaction of knowing you're supporting a patriot in Mike Lindell, also American jobs and American manufacturing. And then also, Erika, I got to remind you, Christmas is coming up. You got 3 boys, so you can use that promo code. Go to mypillow.com, hook up your boys with some great Christmas gifts.
Big thanks to Mike Lindell for all the wonderful things he does for our country, for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We definitely need patriots like him. Erika, what are some of the things that perhaps parents or people like myself would be surprised to learn when it comes to our educational system and how illegal immigration is impacting America's educational system, or just in general? What are things that you feel parents need to know?
Well, as I mentioned earlier in the show, I don't think that parents really understand how bad the performance is in our American public schools. When we look at the nation's report card, if you look at a city like Baltimore, there are 40 high schools in Baltimore where 0 students are graduating with proficiency in math and reading. Not a single student in 40 schools. In New York,
I'm sorry.
I could go on.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
There are plenty of cities with these same statistics, and parents need to understand this. It is a national security disaster. We will not compete globally if we do not fix this immediately. And the illegal immigration that is rampant and affecting our classrooms is making it even worse.
I'm not a conspiracy theorist. How much of this do you, but I do have to ask this. This makes no sense to me. I mean, I know leftists are crazy. I completely get it. But when you hear numbers like you just mentioned in Baltimore, I believe it is, there's a lot of these kids, sadly, unless somebody comes along, God brings somebody along to mentor and teach these kids, they're going to be relegated to a life of poverty, perhaps a life of crime. I don't even understand how people...
A life of government dependence.
Ah, man. Okay, so now that takes me right back to my point then. How much of this is intentional? You don't have to go cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, Erika. You can leave me out there hanging. I completely understand. But I have to wonder, this makes no sense to me, except that the Democrat Party wants a permanent underclass.
Well, that is what I believe. It can be nothing but intentional. When you look at the teachers' unions, if you look at the topics that they talk about on their blogs, even in their conferences, the things that they're pushing out to their members, it's all ideological. It's not about how to teach kids how to read and do math at grade level. They don't talk about that at all. All they care about is pushing left-wing indoctrination into our schools, and they're not even shy about it. So they have given up on helping kids to be successful and independent in life, and instead, it's more important to them to push their ideology in our public schools and make them lifelong ideologues, loyal to not just government, but also to the left wing of our politics. And there is nothing about this that is accidental. We've seen it happen in history, if you know your history, around the world. Look at what's going on in college campuses right now, where there are basically pro-Hamas, pro-terror protests and demonstrations going on. My 12-year-old, who has been classically educated, looked at that and said, don't these people know history? Don't they know about Nazi Germany?
Wow.
Don't they know what Hitler did and how many Jewish people that he killed during the Holocaust? He knows history, so he can recognize what's going on in our world. These kids do not know their history. They do not understand the danger of Hamas and what is happening to the Jewish people and Israel, and therefore they're doomed to repeat it. And so I do think that it is intentional. And we are already seeing the results in adults who have been through this education system, even like you and I, back to when we were growing up. We're seeing that happen today.
Yeah, it's amazing to me too, because now we bring in these students that are illegal. They're not assimilated into into this country. They have no loyalty to this country. And I'm just sitting here thinking this is a disaster that is waiting to happen. And meanwhile, frankly, I don't believe we have enough conservatives that are having enough kids out there to maybe even some conservatives buying into some of this, left-wing crap, the man-made global warming and all this kind of stuff. Now, it appears that you and Representative Byron Donalds have done your part, but we need more Americans to do their part and have more kids.
Well, not only having more children, but that's exactly why we have OptimaEd, why we continue to open more and more classical schools, make classical education available to every family, and also we offer a classical curriculum that any school can adopt in their brick and mortar or virtual environment. So our goal is to make sure that these children learn the history of our country, the history of the world, and that they can decipher for themselves why America is the greatest country that man has ever known. And so we all have to do our part in our own part of the world, but it is our responsibility as parents to teach our children these things, or to make sure that they have the education environment that's going to teach them.
What if people go on? Where can people go to find out more information about OptimaEd, Optima VR's? Is there a specific website?
OptimaAcademy.online. That's OptimaAcademy.online. If you go there, if you want to enroll your student here in Florida, it is tuition free. You can take one course or full-time, whatever suits your student's needs. Even if they're in full-time public or private school, they can still take a free course with Optima Academy online, including history, civics, etc. Science is great in VR. But around the country, you can check there on the website if it's tuition free covered by an ESA, such as in Arizona, or if you have the option to pay tuition. If you're interested in our curriculum, that's available on OptimaAcademy.online as well.
I wanted to ask you this, and I only have a couple of more questions for you here, Erika, but I consider all of the children that are coming into this country illegally, and I sit here and think, okay, so these children are coming into our country illegally. They're going to drain resources, so on, et cetera. They're not going to get the quality education that they deserve. But if you're a person that's on the left, I'm sitting here thinking, aren't we robbing those other countries of their valuable resource, what I consider to be their most valuable resource long term? Children. I mean, the left always talks about they're this party. The Democrat Party is this party of compassion, and I'm sitting here thinking, how compassionate is it to relegate these kids to a life of poverty and, as you mentioned, government dependency, when young men and young women and their countries can learn and be in their own environment and thrive in those countries? This doesn't make sense to me.
Well, just as a human being, you feel awful for these migrants. Obviously, the situation is so bad in their country. Their children have no chance at success in their minds as parents that they are willing to trek miles and miles in very treacherous terrain, risk their lives with cartels, risk their young women to be raped or trafficked, in order to get to America, where, as you just mentioned, they're getting a substandard education. They're depending on government assistance and living, in most cases, a life of poverty. They can't work legally, but that's better in their minds than what they are getting in their home country. And so as a human being, we feel awful for these individuals who have to make this, or feel they have to make this choice. However, we are Americans. We are Americans first. We have got to take care of our country. We have got to keep our children safe. And most of all, we have to set them up for success. We're not doing that with or without illegal immigrants coming in. We know that it's made worse by rampant illegal immigration. We have to call on the administration to stop this invasion now for the betterment of our children, if not for anything else.
Why do you suppose, at least in my opinion, there hasn't been seemingly there's Republicans seem so weak-kneed. I mean, obviously your husband isn't one of them, but they're so it's fascinating to me that we elect these guys and they're just so weak-kneed. I mean, even they campaign, they sound great and all this kind of stuff, but when it comes to actually doing the business of the American people and keeping this country safe and our economy strong, our borders safe, it's amazing to me the lack of appetite that seems to exist to do these things, even within the Republican Party.
Yeah, and we've been watching it. We got involved in the Tea Party movement back in 2010-ish. So we've been watching this for a long time as well, and that's what got us off the couch, if you will. We're just raising our family, serving in our church, having great careers, had no interest in politics. But as we watched just what you referred to, things are not getting done. People are saying the right things, then they get into office and they don't do it. They don't stand for what we believe in. And that's what caused both of us to run for office, frankly. When I ran for school board, he went to the state house and now to Congress. Somebody has to actually do what they said they're going to do and fight for the ideals that are best for the American people. And so I believe that courage is contagious. And so people like Byron out there saying these things, but actually doing them and bringing and leading people along with them. We need more of those people. We need to be involved in getting the right people elected and holding them accountable, standing with them. When I sat on the school board, I felt like a lot of people helped me to get elected, and then they kind of disappeared. And so I give such promotion to Moms for Liberty, where I sit on their advisory board, because they are teaching people not just to get the right people elected, but how can you support them on an ongoing basis to make sure that these things get across the finish line and they don't sit out there alone floundering, trying to do very controversial things and getting attacked by the other side.
That's a great point. And frankly, as conservatives, that's something that we have to, it's learned behavior, because we elect our officials. We expect them to do their business. We go on about our business and work and provide for our families, go to church, so on, et cetera. But now we're learning that, when Barack Obama said he was a community organizer back in the day, and we scoffed at him, I'm like, man, that fool.
We need more of that on our side.
Yes, we did not know what he meant, and man, and now we do. So anyway, listen, Erika, it's been a pleasure speaking with you today. I do want to encourage people to go to OptimaAcademy.online. Is that correct?
That's right. Thank you so much, and I really enjoyed talking to you as well, Carl. Thank you.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. Tell Representative Byron Donalds I said, what up? I really do appreciate his work in Congress. And I got to be frank with you. I think one of the most important stances that he made to me was when he was amongst the 20 last year that stood up to then, Speaker, or before he became Speaker McCarthy, and said, listen, if you're going to become Speaker, we need these concessions, and regardless of how people may feel, I didn't like the way Matt Gaetz went about this last deal. But anyway, I feel like we perhaps may have gotten a better Speaker. We'll know for sure, in my opinion, after November 17th. But I appreciate his stance then. I have some different opinions on him with Trump and DeSantis, frankly. But I never doubt the conviction of your husband. And frankly, I love both Trump and DeSantis. I wish the primaries weren't as nasty.
I totally agree with you. I'm tired of seeing it, honestly. I want to block them both until it's over, because, we're with Trump for 2024, but DeSantis has done some good things as governor, and we appreciate his stance and bold stance on a lot of things, especially during COVID. So it's tough when your friends are fighting, but it'll be over soon enough. We'll all be on the same team again, and we're going to win in 24.
Yeah. That's so true, but I appreciate the fight that you're putting up, helping us out with this education issue. I appreciate the fight that your husband is putting up as well, Erika, in Congress. Let me ask you this last thing. I'm sorry, this just came to mind. How do Republicans message? How should they be messaging? How should they be fighting back when it comes to this issue of illegal immigration in our schools? Because I don't even think they're talking about it.
Well, I like to use the less talking points against them. I know you do as well. And they like to say that our schools are underfunded. Well, since our schools are underfunded, how can we afford the expense of these additional illegal immigrants in the classrooms? And really it being unfair to teachers. You know, people really love their teachers. They appreciate teachers. They do very important work, and it's hard work. And it's very unfair to teachers to not only bring new students in throughout the year, but new students who are very far behind, who need a lot of attention and resources, and who are taking those resources away from students who already are behind because of the pandemic, and who need those resources to get the quality education that they deserve. And I think when you talk about things in resource allocation terms, especially those who are not really involved in politics, it makes sense to people. They like their school.
You're right.
They want the school to have the funds to be successful, and they understand that there's no additional money for all the resources that these illegal immigrant children need. It's not fair to them, and it's not fair to our students.
I love it. I love it. I hope they hire you for messaging because, good Lord, do they need it.
Thank you.
It's insane to me. Anyway. All right. So anyway, listen, this has been your daily dose of objective truth in a world of confusion and lies. Guys, please support the podcast. Follow me wherever you go. To get your podcast, you can subscribe to The Carl Jackson Show. All things social media at The Carl Jackson Show. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, True Social, Getter. Wherever I am on social media at The Carl Jackson Show. Make sure you check me out this week. I'll be filling in for the Officer Tatum on Thursday and Friday. So make sure you check me out there. And again, make sure you go to OptimaAcademy.online. You can follow Erika Donalds at Erika Donalds. You spell that with a K on X, formerly known as Twitter. Also, you can check out her organizations at OptimaEd on X and at Optima VR. She is the wife of Representative Byron Donalds. She is the mom of 3, but also Representative Byron Donalds has a good woman in Erika Donalds. I can absolutely tell just by this interview. So, and the things that you've done and are doing for this country. So God bless you both, Erika. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Carl. God bless.
Absolutely.